The big story to lead off with is what transpired on Saturday night in the main event of UFC Seattle. It was Henry Cejudo against Song Yadong in a fight that was important in the bantamweight division. Cejudo on his, the last chapter, the last legs of his career, looking to pick up a win over, a guy who is still in the sort of up and coming phase. We're still not quite sure how good Song Yadong could be and what his ceiling is. And it was turning out to be a very good fight. Unfortunately, around 1:15 left in the third round, there was an eye poke, which seemed to very much affect Henry Cejudo's vision. There it is right there. Might have been 2 fingers to the eye, to the left eye of Henry Cejudo. He took the full 5 minutes, which he was very much allowed to do so, and the fight resumed after the full 5 minutes, and he was very bothered. And you always feel for the fighter because the referee will come up and be like, "You good? You good?" And he's like, "No, I want to take the 5 minutes." The crowd starts getting on you. There's booing. There's angst. There's all this stuff. But in the end, the fight resumed. As the third round ends, Henry tells the referee, Jason Herzog, "I can't see," goes to the corner and tells his coaches, head coach Eddie Cha and others, multiple times, "I can't see, I can't see, I can't see, I can't freaking see. It's all blurry." They bring in the doctor. The referee makes the call. We're going to start the 4th round just so that we could go to the scorecards at this point because more than half of the fight has now been completed. And they go to the scorecards. And in the end, Song Yadong gets the win because they go to the scorecards and the judges at that point, 3 rounds in, 3 completed rounds in, scored it in favor of Song Yadong. This is a tough pill to swallow for Henry Cejudo. I feel for him. And he has shown us in the aftermath the damage that was done to his left eyeball. It's gnarly stuff. He was bleeding in the immediate aftermath when he was sitting on the stool. And then even on Sunday, he posted on his social media that, the eye is pretty banged up, his face pretty banged up. And there's a ton of blood around the eyeball. I think we have some footage of this. It's a gnarly sight. He wasn't faking. He wasn't playing the game. He wasn't doing veteran tactics or anything like that. That's gnarly stuff. Now, here's my take on how it all went down and perhaps how it should have gone down. I believe unequivocally a point should have been taken away. A point should have been taken away because that was an unintentional foul, but it was a foul nonetheless. In the second round, there was an unintentional low blow. I have said time and again that the first warning needs to be in the locker room. The first time an actual foul transpires in a 3 or 5 round fight, points need to be taken away. That is the only way in which you will stop fighters from committing fouls, unintentionally or intentionally. Now, I'm sure no one wants, the idea of an unintentional foul is kind of crazy because more often than not, unless you're looking for a way out, unless you're a dirty fighter, you're not trying to foul your opponent, especially if you're up, especially if you're looking pretty damn good. But still, you equate it to the game of football, American football. No one's trying to go offsides. No one's trying to get a face mask. More often than not, you're not trying to hold on to your opponent and commit a foul. It's just all in the flow of the game. Things happen, but there are repercussions. In basketball, you're not trying to goaltend, but there are repercussions. You're not trying to travel, but there are repercussions. There have to be repercussions. And so this way of officiating where it's like, oh, we don't want to affect the fight. Well, you're not affecting the fight. You didn't commit the foul, referee. The fighter committed the foul. Song Yadong is not a dirty fighter, but there was a foul that was committed. And sometimes you'll have a foul committed and the fight will resume and we'll go back in retrospect on shows like these and say, you know what, in retrospect, for that low blow or for that eye poke, a foul should have, it was a foul and a point should have been taken away. But the fight played out and it's impossible to know how much it affected the guy. The guy committed to the idea of continuing to fight and so be it. But in this case, we have the benefit of hindsight, which is that the foul was so severe that it ultimately ended the fight. Now, here's where it gets a little bit kooky. Had Henry Cejudo said in the moment during that 5-minute break that he could not continue, it would have been a no contest. Why a no contest and not a DQ? Because, and again, this is another weird gray area in the sport of officiating for mixed martial arts. If the referee determines that the foul was not intentional, it's a no contest. If they determine that the fighter did it on purpose, it's a DQ, meaning Cejudo wins via DQ and Song is DQ'd. How a referee can determine what's intentional and what's not intentional, I have no idea. I really have no idea. Like, if putting your hands out like this isn't intentional, I don't know. Now, I'm not advocating right now for it to have been a DQ. I do believe that that was kind of in the flow of the fight, but still, it's still a little bit of a wacky gray area. And so it's in the flow of the fight, and it severely injured Henry to the point where a minute later he couldn't fight. That to me is textbook. Point should be taken away. If the foul is so severe that the fighter cannot see and eventually cannot fight, how is that not worthy of a point being taken away? In the end, a point wasn't taken away. There were a couple of strong warnings. There was references to the second round where the blow happened. It's like, hey man, you can't do that anymore. Henry takes the 5 minutes, as he should have. The fight resumes. A minute and 15 or so left. He's just dancing around. He's not throwing anything, and it's clear that he's bothered. He's getting booed, all this stuff. Not his fault. He didn't do anything wrong. He goes to the corner, and he tells his corner he can't see. But at that point, because he chose to resume the fight, the no contest DQ discussion is no longer a factor because the fight has now resumed. So what they have to go to are the scorecards. And when you go to the scorecards, you will see, and we have the scorecards, Song, according to the judges, wins the fight. Look at it right here. Mike Bell, 29-28. Derek Cleary, 29-28. And Sal D'Amato, 30-27. Here's the rub. If Jason Herzog takes the point away, now all of a sudden, it ain't 29-28 for Mike Bell, it's 28-28. It ain't 29-28 for Derek Cleary, it's 28-28. And for Sal D'Amato, it's 29-27. But that's a majority draw. And so in my opinion, at best, this fight is a draw. At worst, it should have been a no contest. If Henry would have said, I can't fight, and doesn't try. He was penalized for trying to fight through. And then afterwards, he's being called out for looking for a way out. We've looked at enough Dana White post-fight press conference footage to know when he's upset with someone, when he's not, when he wants to defend someone, when he doesn't. He was pissed with Henry. He was very pissed. He still hasn't forgotten about the time that Henry vacated the title back in 2020. They're still holding that grudge. Trust me. I know. Trust me on this. And so he could have came out and said, like, look, man, the guy got poked. What is he supposed to do? No, they're treating that as a win for Song Yadong. And Henry's going to get penalized for it. There's no doubt about it. And when I say penalized, it's like he doesn't get to advance with the thought process being it's a win. Why is that? If he would have said, no, I can't fight anymore, it's a no contest, and they either run it back or they don't. In the past, they haven't. Bilal and Leon, they ran it back down the line. In this case, he actually tried to fight through. He screws himself over with the fight going the full 3. They go to the scorecards, no point taken away. He loses. How is that fair? It's not fair. It's not fair. And we have to keep adapting, we have to keep evolving, we have to keep modifying. But he got screwed. It should have been a draw or a no contest. No winner. It was unintentional. The one thing I will say, in the aftermath of the fight getting resumed, those last 115, if you go back to the footage, and credit to Michael Bisping for pointing this out, Song continues to fight like this. He's continuing to fight like this. You can't keep doing that. Now, what about the irony that this is just the second fight night where the real gloves, the old new gloves, you get the point, those gloves are brought back for the entire card. Now, does that make a difference? No, but what we were told ultimately, and I say no, like who the hell knows is the right thing to say. But we were told when they introduced these new gloves back in April of last year that this would help stop eye pokes. They were working on it. They did the science. They did this, did that. But then what happened? There weren't a lot of stoppages. And everyone convinced themselves with a pretty small sample size. Remember, they got rid of it. They introduced it in June. They got rid of it in November. The sample size was 5 months. Not enough stoppages. We're going back. Eye pokes be damned. Here we are, second week where the old gloves are brought in for fight nights. Because remember, they were initially just brought in for pay-per-views. The fight nights used them up until last week's card, like 2 weeks ago, 2 Saturdays ago. Second one, main event ends in an eye poke? How do they not figure this out? At this point, just find there's enough good gloves out there. There's enough data. There's enough science. There are enough people that are trying to create rounded gloves. We've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. All these years, how many times? The gloves are too stiff. You have fingerless gloves. Fighters are always going to have you're supposed to be like this. Who's fighting like this? Who's measuring distance like this? Who's trying to do this? No one. Everyone's going like this. And this is going to continue to happen. Spoiler alert, this will happen time and time and time and again. This is not the last time. This ain't the first time. It will continue to happen. And it sucks. And so the only criticism that I will throw ultimately towards Song is that after that happened, you can't keep fighting like this. If anything, that should have been another warning after the point deduction, in my opinion. And so I feel for Henry in this regard. And I feel for him because it won't be treated as a quote unquote win. And I don't know how much business they want to keep doing with him. I don't think they're the biggest fans. Just my 2 cents. You look at the body language. You look at the way he speaks about him in the aftermath. You look at the body language when he gave up the belt. You know the history of how they feel about people giving up the belt, especially on that show in May of 2020, the first show back with the eyes of the sporting world on the UFC. Didn't love it. And all the things that were said afterwards, tough pill to swallow. Tough pill to swallow if you're Henry Cejudo. Unfortunately, it's a tough pill for him because he feels the pressure of everyone being like, come on, man, keep fighting, keep fighting. The guy can't see. You can't go in there and not be able to see against someone like Song Yadong. And ultimately, the most fair thing, in addition to it being a draw and a no contest, is to run it back, but it doesn't seem as though they're going to run it back, at least based on what Dana White said afterwards. Last night on social media, they were going back and forth, the two of them, and they both want to run it back. Here's Henry saying, run it back. Dana White, Song, you told me you wanted a rematch. Your face at the end says it all. You know you didn't defeat me. Learn how to close your fists and sign the damn contract. Well, there isn't a contract, but we get the point. Here's Song, bro, of course. I'm more than happy to have a rematch with you. The first 3 rounds were just my warm-up. My plan was to turn it up in the 4th round and KO you. You know that. Tell the UFC to set it up. I'm ready to sign the contract. That's a more accurate assessment of where we're at. There are no contracts. Now, I thought it was really interesting. There was a tweet here from one Jim Miller who weighed in on the glove situation, and he would know. He's been around the block for quite some time. I thought his 2 cents on it said it all. If you don't want to listen to me, listen to him. It's not the gloves, it's the culture, he writes. The shameless win at all costs mentality amongst fighters and the, quote, eye pokes are an accident and not a foul mentality most people seem to have. The good news is that we can change the culture. Penalize the foul immediately during the pause in action after confirming a strike or post was thrown with outstretched fingers. I believe not only a point deduction, but also a purse deduction would have a rapid effect on how many pokes we see. I think that's a little bit extreme, but God bless, Jim. Do your thing. I've come to these conclusions after being taped into those gloves 45 times, totaling over 7 hours inside the octagon, landing over 1,200 significant strikes, none of which were thrown with extended fingers, and I also slept at a Holiday Inn Express a few times. Now, we've talked about, if you miss weight, you lose a point, or if you miss weight, it should be 50%, this and that. To me, the easiest thing, and the purse thing is extreme. You commit a foul like this, whether it's a eye poke or a low blow, it's a point deduction. That's it. Way more often are you given a warning and then a super strong warning and then a super duper strong warning than you are given an outright eye poke. And more often than not, for whatever weird reason, a point deduction for an eye poke. More often than not, if in fact you are deducted a point after the first infraction, it's like a whoa, that was a little quick. Why? It's a 15-minute fight or a 25-minute fight. Warn the dudes in the locker room, you can't fight like this, and if you do that, we're going to have to take a point away. Sorry. And if they just did that, this would have ended in a draw. And that would have been the most fair thing. It's tough. And I feel for a guy who's at the very end of his career, and who knows how many he has left, and who knows what the damage is going to be as far as this is concerned. And now he has to sit on an L. And really, like in 5 years, no one remembers the circumstances. They just see it as an L. So now it's like, oh, Henry's on a losing streak. Well, not really. And who knows? Maybe he would have gotten knocked out in the fourth round if none of this happened. And certainly Song, in my opinion, if everything was fair and equal, he's up in that fight. I don't know about 30-27, but he's up 29-28. So maybe he wins a decision. But just for it to end like that is a tough one. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.